Happy Sunday night and welcome to the Park Adventurers Club. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys, as always, for being with us and spending your Sunday nights with us talking about park stuff. We appreciate you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. This is the one you're going to want to be on your list for all kinds of entertainment all week long, so don't forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to, if you're live with us tonight, please chat along, and if you are so moved, we wouldn't mind if you super chatted here and there. That would be great. Tonight I have with me a gentleman who is fresh from the parks, as it can be seen by all of his gear, is Mr. Ron Deanna. How are you, Ron?
Aloha. How's it going?
It's going great, man. Thanks for being here. We had some technical difficulties with one of our club members, so we are. It's just gonna be me and Ron tonight, hanging out, talking with all of you guys in chat. We're gonna reference some of the stuff from our park adventurers. But Ron, you just got back from an epic time in Florida, and you got a lot of merch there, buddy.
Yeah, I grabbed most of like the opening day stuff. The shirt. This pin set they didn't release till like 8 o'clock at night. I had gone in, bought most of the pins, and then later on the shop's like, oh, we have a set that included the one in the middle, the opening day soda bottle. That was the opening day ticket here. That's what they were giving out to guests on the way out of the park. So we got those.
Nice.
Yeah, there was a lot of really, really cool stuff going on that day. And unbelievably light crowds.
Yeah, no. So I've heard. We talked a little bit about that on the show behind your back while you were there enjoying yourself. We were admiring it from afar. But let's get into tonight's agenda. So it's a club meeting. We're going to have an agenda. And our agenda for tonight is as follows. We're going to talk about Disney's Starlight. The parade is going to debut on 7/20. We'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about our first looks inside Geo 82 at EPCOT, their new lounge. And then there are new DVC perks happening. The Mermaid and Villain shows opened at the studios, and a Disney Springs Flavors of Florida is about to begin in Florida. That's going to be our old business, and our new business is going to be, are there any Disney or Universal attractions that are too iconic to remove? And especially on the heels of, like, we were a week away from Muppet Vision, which we all thought at one point, oh, well, that's Jim Henson's, like, legacy. That's untouchable. We would never touch that. Why would we do that? So we're going to talk about all of those things tonight. So thank you guys for being with us. We appreciate it. The first thing is, Ron, the Magic Kingdom is finally getting a parade back. They're going to have a nighttime parade, and it is going to be Starlight, and it's going to open on July 20th. I would say you should rush to get your park reservations, because even annual pass holders need park reservations for this one. But I checked earlier today, and they're still available. So this is not quite the rush to get in that I thought it would be. But there's new merch. They're ready. They showed off the merch already. We've seen what the floats are going to look like. It's about time, though, right? Are you excited about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I loved all the nighttime parades. I loved working the nighttime parades back in the day. That was one of my favorite things to do. And yeah, it's been God knows how long. I can't even remember when we lost Main Street Electrical. Was pre-COVID, right? And yeah. But I don't know how they're going to handle it with the way they handle crowds these days. Like, people line up for wishes and start sitting down so many hours earlier. I don't know how they're going to do this. And maybe the thought is, well, if we could move those people along the parade route so they're not all crowding there for wishes. I don't know. I mean, that's my biggest concern. And part of that is, over the years, you just haven't, cast members stopped telling people they couldn't sit down. I don't know when that was the decision and why, but back in my day, which is going to probably be a lot tonight as we talk about the classic attractions, you just wouldn't do that. Like, you were not allowed to just sit there.
Yeah, no, I get that. And as a matter of fact, most of my most frustrating moments at the Magic Kingdom have been, the crowds that gather at Main Street. And that's really one of the reasons why, like, for my wife and daughter, I will do a dessert party because like it's a safety zone around the craziness that happens there. But yeah, it can get pretty intense, and hopefully this will spread some crowds out. Maybe people won't wait for the parade and the fireworks, or maybe they will. I just think it's pretty exciting in general that there's going to be a new parade, and we're so excited about it that we have merch. So you can get that to throw it on your couch at home, I guess. And of course, we don't miss an opportunity for pins or mouse ears either. So
Ears,
all of
yeah.
that's yeah, exactly. All of that stuff's rolling out. And again, that starts on July 20th. And so on July 20th, you have to make a park reservation. If you're an annual pass holder, you've been used to the idea that anytime after 2 p.m. you can just walk in. That is no longer the case for this particular event. From 7:20 until a to be determined time, annual pass holders will also have to have a park reservation. However, Ron, I don't get this part. You don't have to, like, park hopping is still open. So I can get an EPCOT pass in the morning, punch in, check in, and then go at any time into the Magic Kingdom. So what are they really doing? They're not capping off the Magic Kingdom at that point. Are they just trying to like anticipate, you think, how many people are coming?
I think it's just like like the most basic of quote unquote like precautionary measures here, like just to keep people from coming in just to see it. Like if you're a local and you want to go in just to see the fireworks, it's easy enough. But if you're a local and you have to like log into another park and then get over the Magic Kingdom to see this, you're not going to do it on a whim. That just takes more work. So at least like if you're doing multiple parks, you're kind of like at least like saying like these people are here for the day. They're gonna spend something as opposed to just come in for a parade and bounce, which I think is what they're most concerned about.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so let's move on to talking a little bit about there's a first look that we had at the new I guess it's just a lounge that's coming to EPCOT, which is the Geo 82, I guess named after the geodesic sphere that opened up in 1982. We had seen concept art. We'd gotten kind of a look at the menu. This thing opens this week, June 4th. Is the first time that like guests will have like boots on the ground, but they let the press in to take a look. And so as you can see here, it pretty much looks to me, Ron, like it's exactly like what we were promised in the concept art. I mean, I love like the vibe that it looks like it's just tacked right on to Spaceship Earth, and the all of the stuff there at the bar and the floor all follow that geodesic look. This actually, I saw a comment about where these walls are flattened at the bottom because people were saying they learned their lesson from the ImageWorks rainbow tunnel, that it used to be rounded and people would trip over the bottom of it constantly. That this was them learning their lesson from that. I guess you agree?
Yeah, I was thinking about like what the first couple days of Figment's meet and greet. How many times did he trip? Uh, yeah, it looks like a hotel bar, honestly, like in a modern like metropolitan hotel. But I also think that's what they're looking for, to be futuristic and to tie in to Spaceship Earth, which is still, 40 something years later, still a very futuristic structure. It's not like, that became passe. And I think it looks good. I'm still just weirded out by the adults only space in the Disney park. I think that's still weird to me.
You mean that you can't watch fireworks from there if you're under 21?
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It would have been great for me 6 years ago, but now I've got, sorry, Andy, just go, elsewhere.
Yeah, right. So you just say, "Hey, kids, go enjoy yourselves. You can't be here, but be somewhere else. That'd be great." Yeah, I mean, it is very disturbing that that there are spaces like that in what we're seeing as a theme park for kids, but and they seem to be getting more into the idea of kids with the Cool Kids Summer and take Goofy's takeover of Communicore, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I agree. It's a little bit weird to see that kind of thing happening. So let's move on to the fact that DVC members and our pack was fairly interested in this. At least shout out to Jayware for being excited about it. That they're going to have these welcome home days that are coming to or welcome home weeks that are coming for very soon. I'm looking for the dates here. August 14th through September 16th. So kind of if you're a pass holder, you've got pass holder, VI pass holder days going on right now. This is sort of the DVC version of that. I assume most people who are DVC have AP, but maybe not. Maybe I could be wrong on that. But there's a lot of different stuff at Tower of Terror Courtyard. They're going to be handing out ice cream. And then you've got some discounts going on and morning coffee meetups and character meet and greets. Ron, I know you're not DVC, but is this enough to entice someone, do you think, to get into DVC? Or are they finally trying to, kind of thank the DVC folks for being DVC by doing this? Like, it's marketing clearly, but, I mean, is it going to entice anybody to come do it?
I don't know if it's going to entice someone to go DVC, but I think a lot of these things nowadays, why we've seen an uptick on DVC amenities over the last couple of years, came after they took away amenities from anybody who buys it on the secondary market. And that might be the decision, and we've come close a couple times to buying DVC on the secondary market, but we're like, well, we already have a timeshare in the area. We're not getting any of the benefits of DVC if we do this, so why are we spending the money on it? And I think for those people that are a little more on the fence than us, adding these events really adds something that doesn't cost them a lot. Some of the Midnight Magic, yeah, sure, it's keeping the park open, but I'm sure they sell enough merch to make up for it. It's or get people to come down during non-busy times. And a little bit of ice cream is not enough to make anybody buy anything, but just seeing all this stuff add up does make the choice of going, well, I could spend this and not get benefits, or I could spend this and get annual. For me, one of the biggest things right now, we keep talking about it, is just being able to buy top level annual passes as not Florida residents. I think that's one of the biggest benefits they have. So they keep adding these things to stuff like that, it makes a big deal.
Well, you know what, though, talking to somebody who is DVC, that it actually, it's kind of nice. Yes, I get what you're saying. You can buy the Sorcerer's Pass and not just buy the Incredipass if you're out of state. But at the same time, they used to have a bigger discount for DVC members, and then also there was a kids discount for annual passes, and so all that went away when they reintroduced these passes. Yeah. And so it's nice that you can get Sorcerer's Pass, but it was a nicer deal beforehand that you could get the discount. But I definitely take advantage of that, and then on top of that, I like the fact that you can use the lounges. Those are those differences you get when you actually buy from Disney. But yeah, you're right. You probably save a ton of money buying them aftermarket at those points rather than buying them from Disney directly. And then, some of us were grandfathered in at a certain amount of points, but every year or every time they restructure, it seems like they're requiring more points to get those benefits that are out there. But because of that, when there's an ice cream bar available for free, I want to go get that. They're also mailing out a magnet for that one as well. So I like that they mail out the magnet, but I also prefer the AP situation where you can get multiples if you have 4 of you in the family. So my wife and I will probably be fighting over that magnet at some point. So let's move on to the next thing we were going to talk about tonight, which is the Mermaid show and the Villain show opened up this week. Also, Cool Kids Summer, they all started on May 27th. So, it's good to see these shows back open again, and there is merch for the Villain show. So that's neat to see. And on top of that, I think a bonus thing for me is that animation courtyard is now a little bit alive. I mean, they added that, that animation or the Get Animated show, which is not really a show. It's just a place where you go in and get your kids and dance with them. But I think this is targeting parents like you, that kids of your age that you have. But I love the fact that the Mermaid show is open again. There's been almost no reason to go down into the animation courtyard, and now you've got that show open. And because of that, they opened up the adjacent shop finally again. But they've had 2 closed shops plus the shop being closed in the launch bay, and then they've only had the Disney Junior Dance Party. That was it. And now there's actually, it seeming like a reason. They're like, hey, we've got this big courtyard and we're trying to entertain people. They have like jump ropers and jugglers and magicians. And it does seem a little bit sort of like, do we love that, or does that seem a little beneath Disney to offer that kind of entertainment?
You know what? I'm never going to complain about them hiring people to be entertainers. I think I'd rather have things like Streetmosphere, but like, sometimes that's not what everybody wanted, and the kids are what's important, particularly in a park like this where most of the rides have height requirements. There's no playground anymore. Anything that's there for the kids is definitely a big boost. Like, why does Toy Story Land not have a playground? Like, why not? Why didn't you salvage some of the stuff from Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids playset? Like, the scale's the same. Like, it seems like a bad idea when everybody else has got, like, Universal has great playgrounds now, and Disney doesn't, and that just seems so counterintuitive. But it's great to see, Mermaid open again. It's a classic. I'm glad they did some updates for it. I don't watch shows if I have a chance at seeing them within a year, so I haven't watched the videos of anything yet.
Yeah.
But parts of it I have definitely, like, seen people's reviews, but there's like, they did some great things and then they did some cheap things. It's
Well,
weird.
okay, so as far as the show goes, and I don't think this is quite a spoiler, the villain show apparently has 3 different possible endings depending on who you feel like of the villains has been the most unfairly, has been the most unfairly treated. So it's unfairly ever after. I kind of love that idea that it's different a little bit each time, and that like there's an interactivity side of it. I think that's kind of cool. Do you think your daughter would get into that?
I think so. We left right before we left. We were home and back at school and work those days, when that all started. But my family, my in-laws were in the park that day, and they couldn't get into that show, even though it was a priority for them, because it was already like 3 or 4 shows into the day, they said, and they just couldn't get in. They cut it off.
Yeah.
Definitely it is attracting kids, and I think that's great. But I still think it feels, what I've seen, like it's a temporary show that I think they're just trying to keep it warm for Villains Land and keep that theater going, because the Lightning McQueen crowds definitely started to tail off pretty quick, because the show was it was fun, but it wasn't repeatable.
Yeah. How old's your daughter? Do you mind? Or is that
She's 6.
Undisclosed? She's 6. Okay.
No, she's
Mandy
6.
had that question in chat. So honestly, I love that there are things in these buildings. That's great. I do think maybe the villain show might be a little bit of an upgrade, not obviously technology wise to what was there for Lightning McQueen, but to your point, and what we'll talk about at the back half of the show is, when they close attractions and what we miss and what we don't and what's untouchable. But before we do that, we have a super chat. There you go. And it's from Jungle Cruiser. It says, no Starlight popcorn bucket. That's sad. I agree. There should be a popcorn bucket for everything, honestly. I mean, I have, like, it could have even been one of these, like one of these kind of popcorn buckets for it. And maybe there will be. I mean, we still have some time. But thanks, Jungle Cruiser, for the super chat. We appreciate you. So let's move on to the final one, and I don't know how excited people get about this, to be honest, but the Flavors of Florida is coming back. I think this is the 6th year that this is coming back, and it's almost to me like we're doing we're doing food and wine at Springs. So it's kind of like a way to double dip for them to like spread out what they're doing. And they're doing this at Disney Springs. It starts on June 27th, and they do some tastings and pairings. There are special items available at the event for at different kiosks and everything. Of course, I'm very involved with this Orange Bird cone because I do love me some Orange Bird. But 90 new menu items that they're offering, and at 45 different Springs locations. And honestly, I think this is going to be a great thing for locals who want to just like sample things, but they don't have an annual pass, or they don't want to go into the parks and get all messed up in that. They just want to go and have a good time. Have you been there during this, and do you think this is a big draw for people who are not locals to want to come see this?
I think it's good for a lot of stuff because, every time we go, it's like, where are we going to eat when we're at Springs? Oh, we've eaten everywhere. So adding these new menu items and things can definitely revitalize a lot of the places. Like, I have no idea how many times I've eaten at Homecoming, and I could do it every time. I would eat a Morimoto every time if it wasn't as expensive. Boathouse, same, like, we've done all of these things so many times that just having, new menu items brings in the, something new to get people to go back and eat there instead of eating, on your way back to your hotel, or get people out of the parks at night.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, and again, we kind of, when we plan a trip, a lot of times I'll try to fashion in some sort of a trip to Springs just to kind of, revisit that area, whether it's the restaurants, and there are plenty of restaurant choices there, or whether it's I want to like hit the world of Disney or the co-op, or just to see something that's going on there. So, it's definitely a way to bring people in. I'm excited that it exists. And I think this is a neat opportunity, again, for anybody who's going to be there starting June 27th. This is going to be another cool thing to see. So definitely check that out if you guys are in the area for the Flavors of Florida. Let us know if this is a favorite of yours. We would love to hear that. But before we go on, we have another super chat. There we go. I feel like that sounds very menacing. Does it? I don't know. We're
thinking
still
the old
workshopping.
THX commercials.
That's true. So Jungle Cruiser again. I can tell you, Toontown at Disneyland is crazy popular. They should have more all parks. They should have more in all parks. Sometimes the kids' happy screams are louder than the music. Love that, Jungle Cruiser. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great point. Like, it feels more real when, like, I'm looking at the videos of how, like, kids can go actually play with Goofy. I think a lot of kids probably think that's how life works when you go to a Disney park, is it's really more interactive with these characters. I saw that Flynn Rider and Rapunzel were out and about at Magic Kingdom. Those are, obviously some pretty popular characters. The fact that you can see Clarabelle and some of these other characters when you walk around, I'm all for it too. I think that anything like that makes it more magical and more interactive. I think that's what's so great about Epic and Burke, honestly, and you were just there.
At all the lands, they didn't do traditional character. Well, I mean, it's a little bit more traditional with Dark Universe, but they everything was great. Like, the wandering characters in Burke really make everything feel alive, and the actors are great and stay in character and want to play around. Like, I definitely like did the Rough Nut and Tough Nut. Like, watched them interact with people, and then we did Gobber. When we were in Dark Universe, we did we met Frankenstein and the Bride, Invisible Man, Igor, the violinist. We interacted with everybody there. Mario's definitely the more traditional because they're the kind of traditional fur costumes.
Yeah.
And the lines get long for those, so we really just kind of did the photograph and run. But even just seeing them out.
Yeah, Donkey Kong. I'm going to have to meet Donkey Kong when I go back. I'm definitely going to have to get my picture taken with Donkey Kong, but I know that Toad has been very viral because like Toad's a little wacky, kind of like I don't know.
Yeah, it's a
I
funny
think
costume.
it's really neat seeing that, but like, definitely seeing the Burke characters at that big grand opening, and they walked into the portal, and Rough Nut and Tough Nut are like jostling with each other as they go through, and that whole thing where the fire drill went down, and they did a little play acting with it, or Astrid walks by while you're in line to see Toothless. Like all of that stuff is very cool, and I think that's what we're seeing here. But like, why not just say this is Disney? Why call it Cool Kid Summer? I don't know, but again, thank you, Jungle Cruiser. We appreciate you for that. Let's get into the back half of the show here and talk about our main new business. We're gonna move on. Got the gavel. Got to do it. We're gonna move on to new business, and the big conversation tonight is anything untouchable. And what do I mean by that? So basically, there was a point where one of the Bobs, I can't remember if it was Iger, Chapek, or both, said that these parks are not museums. This is not a thing where we're not going to touch anything because it's always been this way, or we need to keep it this way because Walt put a finger on it at one point or whatever. At the same time, I think what we love about Disney and even Universal, which is different than what we would see at Knott's Berry Farm or King's Dominion or Six Flags, is that they're all about the ride. When we experience these other things, these attractions, Small World, Haunted Mansion, Tiki Room, all of these things that we experienced as kids, we want to kind of take our kids back to that, or we want to go back and experience that again. And so I think that in our heads as Disney adults, or maybe it's just because we're drinking the Kool-Aid, or maybe we're just blind, we're just going, hey, there's a lot of stuff that could never be touched, that's just untouchable, that are things that could not be removed. And then Disney says, hold my beer, the Muppets are going away. The Great Movie Ride, when that one went away. Now, there's some other things that kind of come and go. They're basically all of EPCOT from its original format. And at the same time, Universal was almost the worst with it, because that Universal Studios theme park in Florida lost so much of what was the original concept or the original attractions from there. Jaws, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, all of these IPs that today we love so much, and we would love to see those things back. And a lot of those things we feel like should still exist. So, I think that was kind of the question that I put to our team tonight. There are attractions that we thought were sacred, and I'm going to go ahead and list this out. Movie Ride, Muppets, Splash Mountain, Jaws, that we thought would never leave. Ron, do you think, and you can consult your cat on this one as well, do you think, did you ever think that there would be times where all these things would go away, or did you think that they were untouchable, or you're like, eh?
I mean, I have personal connections to these. Like, I've worked attractions that are gone. Like, when I worked Tiki Room, it was under new management, and it was right after it opened. So we got a lot of oh my God, you took this classic attraction out. When I worked at Universal, I worked Earthquake, and that's, at least Disaster was like a successor. What hurts most is what replaced it, But I always walk that when I'm thinking about these things. It's like, I love nostalgia as much as anybody, but you can't live on nostalgia. And a phrase I've used for a long time is, you can't reach for the future if you're holding on to the past.
Yeah, I get that a little bit, but again, let me position it this way. Is there a difference between a classic, and again, this can go directly to you or to the cat, either one. Is there a classic? Is there a difference between classic and just old and tired, right? Like, I mean, something like the classic attractions that we grew up with, It's a Small World, I thought would never be touched. And then they go in Disneyland and they add the new characters. And my wife was like, I hate this idea. And then I go and ride it and I go, that's an upgrade. That was, I feel like, an upgrade. And we've upgraded the Haunted Mansion a couple of times. And we've upgraded the Haunted Mansion, I feel like, but we've changed Pirates.
I don't know if I think it's still an update to keep it relevant. I think that's the difference. You talked about Great Movie Ride earlier, and I think the problem with the Great Movie Ride was they never did anything to it. They might have changed the film at the end, but that wasn't it. Like, it needed a massive refurb, and I would have definitely preferred to have seen that, as much as I like Runaway Railway, I would prefer some sort of update to the movie ride, but like, come on, even like people a couple years younger than us, like who knew half of those movies as they were outdated at the time, and as time goes on, it just got worse. Like, could they have taken out the musicals and put in something that like Chicago was a film they owned, right? A musical. They could have put that in there. Academy Award winning film, somewhat up to date. Put that in and at the musical scene. Gangster film, put something, like have the posters for the old stuff, but like tie in something more Scorsese. Like you produced Miramax films during these time periods. They never touched their Miramax library
Well, but yeah,
to
and
put
you know,
anything
they used
in.
to. I kind of talked about this in our pack chat today. Is that they used to update the clip show at the end, and to me, that wasn't really a change. That was an evolution of that attraction. But then when they put in the narration from Turner Classic Movies and kind of minimize the interaction of the host on that attraction, to me, now you've changed it, and then eventually, again, they removed the whole thing and put in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. But I agree with you, and the irony is the same as King Kong Confrontation. I loved Confrontation over at Universal, but they got rid of it almost just before Peter Jackson revived the series. Like, the timing seemed super off. Same thing here with the Great Movie Ride. You had just bought Lucasfilm. You had just bought Pixar and Marvel, and you owned all these things and could have had an Avengers scene instead of, one of those, or Star Wars instead of Alien, or whatever you wanted to do. But now you own Alien, so that didn't really matter. Like, there were so many cool things that they could have done to upgrade that attraction one scene at a time, that feels like if you had just replaced one scene, the crowd would have been back in spades. And it always seemed like it was a crowded attraction. It never seemed like some of these attractions that we will talk about, they kind of waned off on people coming to them before they closed.
Yeah.
Universe of Energy that way. No one ever went to Universe of Energy with Ellen anymore until it was about to close, and then everybody wanted to get their last ride in. Same thing with, with It's Tough to Be a Bug, probably.
Yeah, and I think the key is not what they take out; it's what they replace, and it has to be better, right? Like, as I mentioned, like Fast and the Furious is one of the worst theme park attractions ever. It worked as part of a tour, and just because it's like a 5-minute segment of an hour-long ride, and that's fine. It doesn't work on its own. Mummy replaced Confrontation, and as much as people were like miss Confrontation, Mummy is an excellent dark coaster. Like, that's the difference here, and I think there's been time like Horizons for Mission Space, the Imagination, like replacements, those were downgrades, and that's the difference. I think as long as you're doing something good, nostalgia, like people shut up about Maelstrom when Frozen opened.
Yeah,
right.
agree.
Everybody was
and
like, "Oh, you can't get rid of Maelstrom for this." And Frozen was fantastic and got rid of a, vaguely stereotyping, outdated attraction. In the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, and I know that a lot of our Disney purists will disagree, I do think that Frozen was an upgrade, so I agree with you there. I like when they do that. I like when they build something new, like Ratatouille, that didn't, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure didn't replace anything. So you've added to that. That's the kind of thing I love. And even when you upgrade something, like they upgraded PhilharMagic and they added the Coco scene to it. When you upgrade things like that, I appreciate that. I appreciate when you do that kind of stuff. But when you take away or make it worse, like you said, then you've got a problem. So let's move on to like attractions that have been modified. Small World and Disneyland. Again, like I said, my wife, when she heard, wait a minute, you added Disney characters to It's a Small World, the original It's a Small World, that sounds horrible. Then we get there and she's like, no, I kind of like this. And now she, I think, wishes they would upgrade the one in Florida to the same thing. Again, you're not replacing that attraction. You're not changing anything drastically. I know some blogs have said that like they're drastically changing the song. They're not drastically changing it. They're adding a verse. Those are things that I feel like you've upgraded when you add the Hatbox Ghost to the Haunted Mansion. But at the same time, you've got things like the Tiki Room, where they put it under new management, as you said. You got the Country Bears, where you completely changed from what they were singing to Disney songs. The Pirates of the Caribbean,
let's go with Country Bears for a second.
yeah. Talk to me.
Like this is not the first. Like, Country Bears was changed in the 80s, and we didn't get this show for like a decade. And I think people just kind of oop, and that was takes on modern songs. It was like, what we I wish we all could be, California Bears. No, this was like, it was modern songs, and I think the concept of it is still the same, even if it is Disney songs. Like, it's still a good show. I still like the old one more, and that might be just nostalgia, but like, and Andy loved both of them. Like, she clapped along to both, but I think she's now singing along because she knows these shows, and I think that's what's important is like, some of those songs were traditional songs some people might have known in '71, right? They're
Yeah.
not anymore.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Like those songs that they have had were, were based on bluegrass, classics, and so, Tex Ritter. So it's one of those, or it's just one of those things where I think that it's just different. But you're right. Choosing the Disney songs was probably a good mix of keeping the Bears for the old folks, and then creating, like, new memories for the young kids who know Try Everything, who know Remember Me, and those kind of things. And it's probably better to have your kid walking around singing Remember Me than Blood on the Saddle as they're like walking through, Liberty Square afterwards. But I'm not saying that the Bears was a bad idea. I'm just saying, like, these are other attractions that they changed. But Pirates, and
Yeah.
that's another one that, again, I remember talking to other Disney people at the time, and when they added Johnny Depp, they're like, okay, all right, we're okay with you adding, Jack Sparrow, but don't you dare ever come for our auction scene. Cut to, they change the auction scene, and then people are like, oh, well, okay, yeah, well, that needed to happen. So, I mean, again, those are still
But once
there,
again, that was an
and they're
execution problem. I think the auction scene doesn't quite work. There's something missing there, and it is
the new one,
maybe yeah, I
the
think,
dialogue, maybe a hen for a
yeah,
10.
like, yeah, they could like have the artwork, have the rum, like, I don't know, it just, something just
Yeah.
doesn't feel right on it, and it's not the concept of it. I think Red is an interesting character they should play more with, like, in the franchise, but
And maybe they will, and maybe they'll change it again.
yeah.
We were talking. I think I was talking to Charlie about this on another show. We were talking about, what would be okay for replacing pirates, and this is kind of to your point of, if you can make it better. What if they took away the Pirates of the Caribbean that exists as it does in Adventureland in Florida, and then put in its place the one from Shanghai? Like, that's, you're still doing the same IP. You're just replacing it at a higher level. No, you wouldn't like that.
I don't know. It's one of those things I've been told by people who've seen is like, the videos don't do it justice, but, and I think that was like similar to, I think people said the same thing about Mario Kart, and I liked Mario Kart, so maybe I would like it, but I've watched a couple different videos of that, and just, that never seemed interesting to me. It seemed that
Interesting.
when we talk about like Universal's replacements in the like mid 2000s where everything was a screen ride, that's kind of what it felt like to me. But once again, that could just be the limitations of the medium.
Okay, so let's move on to this then. Attractions that probably need to go or change. Are there any that you can think of right now that probably should go? So, like, we probably would have listed Lightning McQueen in that list. We probably would have listed, like, some of the stuff in the kids zone area of Universal if they hadn't been changed. But is there something that you can think of that either needs to be changed because it just doesn't fit in 2025, or because they should put something better there? Can you think of anything off the top of your head on that one?
I think the biggest thing, one of them, is maybe not completely gutting it, but like, how they handle the Hall of Presidents. I think they should have, at some point before an election, just say, no matter who wins, this is what we're doing. We're not having the current president speak. Like, just get rid of some of the political fireness behind it. And this has been going on since Clinton. Like, we used to have a problem because I worked at Lib Attractions where people would go in and like talk to some of the younger female cast members and say, "Hey, has Bill been hitting on you?" Or leave cigars on on Bill Clinton's picture frame. Like, these jeers and cheers for the current president have been going on way too long, and it's not like they haven't learned their lesson about, you know, the just partisanship of it all. And I think that's one of those things that they need to fix. As I said, they could leave an American history attraction in its place, but I think it has to be something different from the Hall of Presidents.
Yeah.
Some of the movies at EPCOT definitely need to. What happened to our China film upgrade? Uh,
Right.
the I the LeFou's movie, it just doesn't feel for up like update that French film. Keep the style. It's beautiful, but
Yeah.
modernize. You can modernize these things, and I think that's what we were saying with Mansion and Pirates gets changes to keep them interesting and modern. And now, like the characters in Small World do these things, and you could save things from becoming dated.
So here's some from the chat that I find very interesting. Obviously, Fast and Furious Fire Chief says, "Yeah, I
Oh
agree.
no, that
Fast and
needs to
Furious. I
burn.
think, yeah, I think
What?
we're gonna get rid
No,
of that.
keep
But
it. You want to keep Fast and the Furious? What is wrong with you?
you gonna be okay. So honestly,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
Fast
just
and
getting rid of
Furious.
him.
Yeah, I know. He's evil. Fast and Furious is one of those that, like you said, just like Kong Skull Island, it was a drive-through in Hollywood, and they made it here to be a brand new, like built from the ground up building to put in what was a drive-through in the backlot tour. So yeah, I definitely agree with Fast and Furious going. Jimmy Fallon, Mandy said, and then Ronald seconded that one. I agree. It's like it's an interesting concept, but I liked Twister better, and I liked Ghostbusters better than that. So to your point about make it better, I feel like it's kind of made it worse along the way. Twister
Yeah,
was very unique, and I don't think a lot of people really kind of went through it or got what it was. But it was a very unique experience and very movie-esque and very universal.
I didn't love Twister, and part of it was because it took over Ghostbusters. And part of it is I had seen the Backdraft show previous to that, when that was out in L.A., and I thought that was a better show and more interesting. Like, because I just thought, okay, I grew up in Florida. You're showing me some wind. Okay, this is walking around in a
There was a
storm.
flying cow,
This,
Ron. There was a flying cow. I don't understand how you can sleep on the flying cow. That was the thing. But
I,
wait, let's pause on that one. The Sienna said we should get rid of Awesome Planet. It's had its run. The
oh
Harvest
yeah,
Theater, I don't think it's ever had anything interesting in it. It was Symbiosis, and then it was that Lion King show, and then it was Awesome Planet. I don't. And compared to the rest, I don't hate it, but yeah, there's a lot of space on the side there that maybe you could do something better with. But all three of those movies that they dropped were all three disappointing to most people. Awesome Planet, the New Canada Far and Wide, and the Beauty and the Beast sing along all dropped at the same time. It was post COVID. We were just happy to have something back in those theaters. I think. Well, most people were not. Most people complained about that. And to your point, they super hyped up the China thing, and that never happened.
like just something with like Awesome Planet, like just play Disney nature films on loop. Like put them all through. Don't put a start or end time. Just let people come in and relax for a little bit and watch those movies. Give them seats where they can come in, and just chill for however long they want to chill and
Yeah.
leave.
No, that's that.
And I think
I like it.
that's something like that's what I thought they were going to do at that Pixar Shorts thing. I didn't think it was going to be a start and run time. I thought they were just going to be running Pixar Shorts on a continuous loop.
Since it's the land, it would be cool to do like food demonstrations in there too, is like actually something that would tie into it. And I know they're trying to tie into the land by making it something about the environment, but I think that there were other ways to do that. So, yeah. And then also people are talking about The Simpsons. The Simpsons, like Back to the Future ride was amazing for most of us. And so that's one of those things that I'm like, it's a shame that it went away, and what it got replaced with, again, to your point from earlier, it was not as good. And so I feel like that's one of those things that should probably go away. And I would love it if they could somehow, it would be a hero moment for Universal if they would bring Back to the Future, but I don't see that happening.
I mean, there's the rumors of what this coaster is going to be to replace Rip Ride Rocket, which I don't see anybody complaining is going away, right? Like, that is another one. Goodbye, farewell.
Yeah, rip ride
You
rock.
know, let the door hit your ass on the way out. Um, it's not a good coaster. It's never been a good coaster. It's been plagued with problems, but like we're hearing two things, and these are all three things. I've heard the Back to the Future, I've heard the Ghostbusters rumor, and I think the Fast and the Furious is probably the most believable, just personally, because it solves. You already have a Fast and the Furious coaster going in LA with one of the longest test and adjust periods I've ever heard of. It's like a full year. Like it doesn't open until next year, and the carts are already on site because they got to figure out how to do noise dampening in LA. Not as much of a problem in Orlando, so they could get it there pretty quick. I hear
Yeah.
they're even going to be using some of the same like pylons, like support structures they've had. Whoever the coaster manufacturer is, they've been very big on Mac lately. It's probably Mac. I would love who was it that just relocated to like an office to Orlando? Was it Vekoma or Vekoma? One of the major coaster manufacturers, one of the European ones, just started a North American office in Orlando or just announced it, and I think it's Vekoma or Vekoma. I never remember how to pronounce that.
Right.
Uh, that's going there, so maybe they'll be designing it. And they did Velocicoaster and Hagrid's, I believe, both amazing coasters, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Universal has done so much better since then, and any of those three as a theme would fit really well. And the Fast and the Furious, not my favorite idea of a theme, but if you get rid of that, you could kill the other attraction and still like work on that franchise.
Put something
Um,
better there. Yeah. So
put
let
something
me get
better,
to
like yeah.
yeah, let me get to the final thought here then is what could we consider bulletproof? Again, I get that they're not museums, and I like again that we're keeping the bears, but we're making it a little bit more modern. We're keeping It's a Small World, but zhuzhing it up in California, and we're keeping it's the Haunted Mansion. Although I think Care Bear said she still disagrees where they put the Hatbox Ghost at the one in Florida. I do too. Every time I see it and then go through the attic and then out, I'm like, you had a space. It feels like to put it here. So all of those things that that they can those classic attractions, pirates and tikis, those still exist in some format, but again they've been tried to modernize a little bit or upgrade or zhuzh them up a little bit. But what could be considered bulletproof? You mentioned Hall of Presidents. I've wondered if that was too sacred to get rid of, and I would have said that about Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, but look at what we're doing there. We're splitting that up with Walt, so that show is changing, and it'll be interesting to see how long the Lincoln thing lasts. But that's one of the 1964 World's Fair, again, sort of piece of history. I get that it's not a museum, but you get to go and see something that Walt had a hand in building for the 64 World's Fair. Or here are the other two that I'm thinking of, Ron, and Haunted Mansion. Again, they've messed with it a little bit, but it's pretty true to what it was originally. So I feel like that one kind of feels a little bulletproof. But also, back to Universal, the only thing that seems to have survived Universal, and we have our the things we hear why. The only thing that seems to have survived was the ET ride. So, any of those you think are bulletproof, or any that I'm missing?
No, I think once again, I think Mansion, if they hadn't been upgrading it, I don't know if it would have the crowd because those crowds are way longer than anything I had to deal with. I mean, in general, crowds are way longer than anything I had to deal with 22 years ago. But like Mansion to not be a walk, like a 10-15 minute at most, was a weird thing. And I think it's part of those upgrades that have kept it relevant. I mean, obviously, like the internet goth culture and all that around it has definitely helped, but it is these upgrades that keep these things relevant. And same thing I think with Pirates. Like Pirates was always a walk-on most of the time because, well, its capacity is insane. um but now, like, I think the Jack Sparrow stuff is what pushed it to be a queue at times, and I think that's what we need. Like, I don't think Jungle Cruise is untouchable. I think it's if those queues ever start to wane, I think even without those queues waning, if they come up with a good idea that could get capacity that is tied to an IP that could sell something, I think Jungle Cruise could go. I think, Space Mountain, I think Thunder Mountain, I think Small World might be the closest, but I still think that's gonna need upgrades. And I
Yeah.
don't think anything at any of the other parks Like I don't think we would ever see something with Spaceship Earth going away. I don't think we'll see the time racer style concept with like coming in and out of the ball. But I think what's in there is gonna be a dark ride, but like as different as the Dench version was from what came before with the concept of not being about communication but being about technology, I think we could see something even greater change. Like the storytellers thing was interesting. It seemed to go back to communication,
Right.
and but I think that's going to be some form of dark ride, just because the structure itself is too iconic, not what's
Right,
in it.
and honestly, you like that's one again. You're going to upgrade and change. They've done it. They've done it several times, and people have said Figment needs to upgrade and change. I am devastated by what they did to Figment because they made it irreparable to go back to the original when they redid it for what they have there now. I would love to see them upgrade that at some level, but I think as far as Untouchable goes, I'm looking at like you were talking about. Yes, Small World may have been one of those. You don't think ET though?
I think the second Spielberg's out of the picture, ET is way gone. Um, and that also, we were on it and we were discussing. It's like they've actually put some work into it lately. That the scenes on the Green Planet look better than they have in a while.
Yeah.
And over this last year, but like they at least need to fix that pre-show video, or we might like the voice, the passport thing. Nah, I haven't seen that fully work in a long time either. Like that ride needs some work. But as I said, none of these could last without something going in to keep people going.
Yep.
Because even if we are on this, Disney World is not a annual, like the same people over and over again. You're still in a cycle of like 5-10 years with a lot of families, and that's not enough to build the nostalgia, and that's not enough to keep the crowds going on these things that are just not modern.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. So, we've recently seen again the Muppets are going away. The Muppets, that whole area is going away. We're all hoping that after the Villains does its run, they open up the Villains Land, that maybe Muppet Vision goes in to that theater. But I mean, that would be a lot of money to rebuild that theater. And would you rebuild it the way it was to match the film? It feels like it would be a lot of work. I don't know if there was that kind of love for it, if they're going to do that for it. I think we all hope so, although those are purists. But I think there are a lot of people I've talked to that are like, not the purists, that are like, oh, I'm okay if we do something else in there.
I mean, one of these things, like I'm important that Muppets are staying in the park. I want to see what they're going to do with Rock and Roller Coaster, which
Yep.
Aerosmith has definitely run its course. And people always say, well, they were dated when the ride came out, but I think people forgot what that was right after Armageddon. And I don't know if they've had a bigger hit than that song. Like,
Yeah.
really, as much as their classic stuff was, like, they were still like a second tier hard rock band for a long time.
How dare
Like,
you,
as
sir?
much as I love, I don't get me wrong, Dream On is one of my favorite songs. The '80s stuff is great. The Get a Grip album was one of the first two CDs I bought. That it was that and Dookie. I bought a night in I think eighth grade. Like,
Yeah.
I love their stuff, but they're nothing I think was as big of a hit as what's the stupid song from the movie?
Don't want to
Um,
close. Don't want to
from
miss a
the,
thing.
don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah.
Not one of my favorites, but it was huge in the
Yeah.
second half of '98,
Yeah.
and and it was a Disney movie, so it
Yep.
made sense. But like, it's way past it. I don't know if there are any bands that could have done it. I always said I think more modern bands that came around, like, we'll move it forward 20 years, '90s bands that could have fit that. Pearl Jam, U2,
Green Day.
and I don't Green Day, and I don't think any of those
Yeah.
fit that mold.
Yeah. All right. Let's pause on that, and we have another super chat I want to call out here. Jungle Cruiser again, and Jungle Cruiser says, "Don't You mess with the Jungle Cruise, this is war. You said something, I believe, about the Jungle Cruise, but I think in general, I don't think that's gonna. I think that's had all the messing with it's gonna get at this point. I think that they've made the upgrades they wanted to make, and again, going back to that and what we talked about at the top of this is if you can make it better, and I feel like they did. They added more to it, in my opinion. They made it better by adding more things to it and making it a little bit cooler and a little bit more cohesive. So again, thank you, Jungle Cruiser, for your super chat.
I'd love to think it's untouchable, but on the other hand, it is a multi-acre attraction with a pretty poor capacity for its size that takes a lot of staffing to run. And that's what makes it dangerous.
That's true because spielers, like I was a spieler on Listening to the Land, and so spielers were then eliminated from Living with the Land. That way you didn't have to do those. And, again, we talked about Great Movie Ride, and they kind of downplayed how much the cast member needed to interact with that attraction when they added the Turner Classic Movies over it. But the spieler attractions have kind of fallen by the wayside. Things like the Poseidon's Fury, that took a lot of actors.
Yeah,
we just shut that down.
That was so. Universal had actual classes of, and you could speak to this for Living with the Land. I don't know, I don't believe it was a jungle. You had to train on the spiels, but it's not like you were a different class of employee.
No,
than the regular attractions. At Universal, attraction spielers were a different class. When I worked at Earthquake, our starting pay was 50 cents more an hour than the regular attraction. But when you worked at Confrontation, Earthquake, Jaws, and Triceratops, those were still attraction people running those shows. Poseidon's was entertainment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That does make sense, and you're right. And Stephanie and I did a video. Her new show is Castaways, where I talked a little bit about my cast experience, and that was one of the things that we did. Is we had, you were either launching the boats, you were on the boat doing a spiel, you were doing unload, you were working the front queue. You're right. That was a rotation there. You weren't considered entertainment in any way, shape, or form. So definitely, was definitely the way that's set up.
Earthquake had two. You had your theater rotations, or you had the attraction rotations, and then you had the control booth who never really rotated out. The leads would just come break you. Yeah. But so people who hadn't, if you hadn't cleared out on your script yet, you could work the attraction side, and then you didn't get the pay bump until you cleared your script. And also, unlike Disney, you were only working that one attraction. You weren't working on land where you could be working this attraction this day and this attraction the next, which when I was working in Ad Lib Attractions, I could be working Tiki one day, I could be over at Pirates or Jungle the next, and then I could be over at Mansion. They didn't do that when I was at Universal, so that's one of those things I think why that was a different class, because you were guaranteed to be paid that. And if I was loaned out to another attraction because I was scheduled that, they still had to, there's a couple days I worked as a greeter at Fievel's Playland. They still had to pay me that boost. Right. I don't think they loved it, but they had to.
All right. So I asked this question of our pack. So we have a Patreon, and if you were interested, you can go. First of all, we love our pack, the PAC, the Park Adventurers Club. If you were interested, you can go to patreon.com/GoPack to learn PAC. Go PAC to learn all about it. But I asked the question, and the same question that we have tonight is anything untouchable. And I know that Neko had mentioned the Universal Studios tour in Hollywood, which again, always evolving, always changing, but it still exists, and it's still a big draw, and was what that whole park was really built on.
Do you remember?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think that is probably the most untouchable attraction at any park, because yes, it is the core of that park. But do you remember a couple years ago they were testing surveys as what if this wasn't included in your park ticket and it was an upcharge?
Yeah, no, I do remember
and that was some of the biggest uproar I'd ever seen on Twitter about anything. They're like, that's half the park. Are you going to charge me $50 for the rest of the park and $50 for that? Then maybe. but you can't charge me $90 for this and then charge me another 30 for
Yeah,
this.
if you didn't do the studio tour, did you even go to Universal Studios Hollywood? I mean, that's like a 45-minute tour. I feel like you get to go through several, like we talked about attractions in doing so, and then at the same time, you really you really feel like that's a memorable piece of your day, and it takes a chunk of your day too. So
Yeah.
I mean, I feel I feel that that's definitely a thing. Mike's Adventure said the Disneyland Railroad, the train itself still operates the exact same way. So the Disneyland Railroad, for those of you who don't know, has two dioramas that you drive through. One of them is like from the Magic Skyway. They brought the dinosaurs, which then were the ones we saw at Universal, like a knockoff or a copy was at Universal's, the Universe of Energy. But those dinosaur diorama that you go through is an event unto itself. It has a certain smell. If you know, you know. When you ride through there, that definitely feels like something that would be iconic enough that you couldn't touch it. But again, I don't know, because I didn't think they would get rid of the Rivers of America at Magic Kingdom. I didn't think that the Great Movie Ride would ever go away. It was an attraction I wanted to work when I worked as a cast member, and then I didn't really think that Muppet Vision would go away because they had already made it such a small area of the park, and it had its own pocket of the park, and it's like, okay, here's Muppet Vision. It's over here. It's untouched. If anything, I would have thought they would have knocked it down to build more Star Wars, not to build the Monstropolis, which feels like it should have gone in the animation courtyard where there's nothing else. So,
there has to be a plan over there for that to make any sense to me. Yeah. Like you would create the cut through and stop the dead end of which Disney doesn't like dead end lands. Like you would be able to cut back through there, and there has to be some other plan for animation to link back over, because they have shown clearly, like, we don't care about backstage areas, we'll move them, unless it's like parking is the only thing left over there and you just, like, the cast has to park somewhere. But you would have thought, I'm surprised we didn't get a garage when they redid the parking lots, like, honestly. Like,
no, you're right, because when you look at what's available at Hollywood Studios, it's boxed in by roads, and you look at the space that's available, and you look at how much of its parking lot, and of course, the added addition of the former Star Cruiser, which is now an Imagineer planning facility. It does seem like you should have made a deck over there, and maybe someday they will if they get aggressive about growing that park. I don't know if they will or not, but anyway, we could probably talk about this all night, Ron, and I appreciate you weighing in and talking about it with me. And so what I want to do is I want to get to your final vote on, do you think that is anything untouchable? You can tell me yes, no. You can tell me what you think is. We'll get to that in 1 second, but I want to give another shout out to everybody who's been watching, and I thank you guys so much for being with us on the Park Adventurers Club show. Come join us at parkadventurersclub.com, our channel where we have so much programming for you. We are on 3 days a week and then drop content in between. Last week, and this was really the week before, we had Castaways, and we had that's the show with Stephanie interviewing previous cast members. There'll be another one coming up. Stitch Reactions, we did a reaction to the movie. If you've already seen the movie, go see it. #1 movie in the country, just saying. And then we did our Park Adventurers Club last week about the Muppets. Shannon and I did a review of Blank Check. If you're a 90s kid, you can come yell at us about what we thought on that. And then Friday, we did our Rank It about the Muppet movies. That was me and our friend Charlie ranking how the Muppet movies stack up, including Muppet Vision, which closes in a week. And again, a big shout out to all of our PAC members, everybody who has contributed. We really appreciate your help in helping to grow our channel. More information, go to patreon.com/GoPack. And thank you to Jungle Cruiser, Rosita, William, Monica, Michael, Jay Ware, Alicia, Rob B, Vince, Jordan, Sienna, and we have more on the way. So thank you guys. We will get you guys included into our credits here. But Ron, again, this is a big deal conversation that I felt like over time has shocked me how much they were willing to change things. But then in talking to people outside the Disney Universal community, they're like, oh, good. What's new? What's next? What could you replace that with? I don't care about this. I don't care about that. I'm shocked. And I get that it's not a museum, but the question before the club today for our new business, and this is what you got to answer for me here, my friend, is anything untouchable in these parks?
I'm going to say there are things that are, I would say, at a level of 95% or more untouchable. Like, it would take something drastic to ever get rid of Mansion, Pirates, Spaceship Earth, Small World. Something would definitely have to happen just because uh, they are so iconic. And yes, the cat knocked over one of uh, the Coca-Cola bottle up there. He is, he's an orange kitten. They're crazy. But yeah, I think there are things that are not 100% untouchable, but close.
Okay. You know what? Again, I would have thought that everything that there were so many things like I listed off that would have been untouchable. I know there was a scare about the Bears a few years ago, and at least they kept the Bears and they modified it for another generation. I think most people appreciate that about what happened there. So they're still there, and you can still go see them and share them with your kids and your family and all that stuff. E.T., there's something kitschy about it, and I like going back to it. Although I think there are a lot of people who are like, what could we do that would be better than this that we could replace it with? So, I agree, and again, I think the railroad is an excellent example of something that's like should live on forever, and as part of that park. And so I do think there are a few untouchable things, but that window is getting smaller and smaller all the time as we grow and change, and new generations come into play and new ideas. But I think that the central important point always needs to be, if you're going to take something away, thank you. We got to enjoy it. We appreciated it for what it was. The next thing better be better. You better be doing something better than you did the last time. And I think, apologies to Disney, I think that they have not necessarily held up their end of the bargain on that. It ebbs and flows. I do think it ebbs and flows on what that is. But we talked about Mission Space, Test Track. The 3.0 is opening soon. According to our sources, it's coming out in the end of summer. So let's hope that it's better than Test Track 2.0, because Test Track 2.0 seemed like a downgrade from 1. Would you agree to that, Ron?
Yeah. I like the addition of the post show and all that, which is one of the things I loved so much about World of Motion. And I mean, I feel weird on this conversation because I'm someone who's remembers the parks in the early 80s. So it is so changed to me that saying anything like, what things people are nostalgic for now were the changes I saw over the years.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, again, I appreciate you talking about this. Maybe we come back and we revisit it another time when things we've talked about here that could be untouchable get touched in the first place. But please make sure to, again, subscribe, like this video. Make sure to leave us a comment below and tell us what things that you think, if anything, is untouchable in Disney and Universal parks. Shout out to Ron. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being with me here, my friend. I appreciate you. Somebody asked in the chat, 2 questions that came up in the chat. One was, what are we reviewing this week, this Wednesday night at 9 p.m. for A Look on the Plus Side? We're reviewing Cars, which, funny enough, we've never reviewed Cars, and so we'll talk about Cars and a little bit about Cars Land. That's one. We've got a lot of cool reviews coming up, including Ron and Patrick are going to review Rogue One. Patrick and Maleko are going to review Tombstone. Like, we got a lot of good stuff coming up, so please come back for that. But the second question, Ron, which is more important to the chat than any of this, is the names of your cats. They need to know.
So the current cats are Rigby, he's a black Bombay. Lucy is the black and white that was on earlier. And Pepper was the orange maniac that was here a second ago. And obviously they're all Beatles songs. Previous cats, we had Prudence and Jude as well.
Nice. Hey, Jude. Sorry, couldn't help it. I'm sure you did that all the time.
No, and their tags actually have the full song name. Like, Lucy's collar says Lucy ITSWD. His is actually Sergeant Pepper. And Rigby, because he's a boy, doesn't have the Eleanor on it, but
too much. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Everybody, have a great week. Hopefully, we'll see you Wednesday night for A Look on the Plus Side and Cars, and next Friday night, brand new show. More on that soon. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Ron. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great week and be safe out there. And remember, adventure awaits.